Today we're looking at the VLOOKUP function. This is a function you'll find in both spreadsheet programs, Excel and Google Sheets. It works the exact same way on either one. The idea being that I can take two lists of information and compare them. So if I have one list that includes, say, names and phone numbers, and I have another list that includes only names, and I need to be able to compare these quickly and find the right phone number for the right person, then my VLOOKUP, or vertical lookup, is going to be able to help me do that. So let's take a look at an example here. I've set this up, and the idea being that I have a bit of data here on the left that I have collected in a Google form, and it grabbed email addresses but didn't include student names. So our students, of course, use student numbers with their email, which means that email column is not really telling me anything useful about who filled in this quiz. But luckily, as the teacher, I have a list of all of my students' emails and their student names somewhere else. So here I have copy and pasted that list right onto the sheet, and now I'm going to be able to compare this list with the out of order emails that have been collected by my Google form. So when I do that in an actual spreadsheet here, this is the VLOOKUP form that, the formula, I should say, or function that I'll be using. So first thing I need to do is insert that column, because the form didn't have a name column, as I said. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to insert one column to the left, call that name. Done. Now, in this column, that's where I'm going to click right into the very first cell, which is, in this case, B2, type equals VLOOKUP, and open bracket. As soon as I open that bracket, I'm getting a little tip popping down that's telling me a little bit about what's going on here. And the first parameter it needs is the search key. So what is it looking for? Well, it's going to look at the value it finds right here. I'm not going to bother typing A2. I'm just going to click. That's going to fill that in for me, and hit comma for the next parameter, and it wants to know the range. So the range is the group of cells. What group of cells is this looking at to go find A2? Well, since I pasted it in right here to keep it easy, I'm just going to, again, not type, but click and drag to specify my cells. Now, when I bring these tables in, when I'm looking at this comparison, the VLOOKUP formula is only trying to compare the A2 value to the very first column of my data. So in terms of setting things up, that's the one important step here. I need to make sure that only the first column is the one that I'm actually hunting for in my formula here. Once I've got that in, I can go comma. Index, the next parameter here. Index is asking, okay, of that group of cells that I'm going to go look in, what column do you want me to spit back at you? In this case, there's only two columns to work with, and it's in fact the second column that I'm interested in. So I'm going to type 2, comma. Last parameter, not always required, but a good one to throw in there, is either true or false. And it's asking, is the data that I am looking through, my search key here, is that sorted? And I will say false. And close that up, and hit enter. I get Kathy. So I can look at that email address now, 4444, come over to my list and find, in fact, that that is Kathy. So perfect, it's working properly. Now I'm going to go ahead and click over here on that cell, and anytime I want to use a formula more than once, I'm going to click that little square in the lower right corner, so I see that little plus symbol, and click and drag down. It's going to adapt that formula, so it's going to look at A2, A3, A4, A5. But there's a problem. When I look at this, it says it didn't find 1111 in the lookup value. Well, that sounds crazy. How could it not be there? Well, the problem being that as much as it is looking at A2 and then 3 and then 4, and that part worked fine, if I look at these purple values here, the H value, which is my table it's looking at, as I drag the formula down, it adjusted those values as well. So when I click in here, I can see that the purple values now are actually going one row less below, I should say, than what I actually want them to do. So to fix that problem, what I'm going to do is click into my very first cell again, click into that formula, and this time I need to add in some dollar signs. Dollar signs are absolute values that basically say no matter how I drag this, If there's a $sign in front of the row value, which is a 2 and a 10 in this case, it means that as I drag down, do not change that value. I'm going to hit enter, and I can drag that down. This way, even on the very bottom row, it is changing the A10, so that is certainly going to be looking in the correct cell, but now it is looking at all the right cells over on the table here. So if I wanted to fix that on my large version here, I'm going to click right in here, right between the H and the 2, and that's where I'm going to put in my $sign. If I was dragging left and right and I was worried about the H and the I changing, then I could throw a $sign in here as well, make sure it's really locked down. In this case, I don't need it. So that is how I can write that formula, and it is going to populate this, and I might have hundreds of entries in here, and I can quickly write that formula one time, drag it straight down, and we're laughing. So that is how you are able to very quickly go ahead and grab content from one list, compare it to the other list, and pull it in there.